ball, bro, male or female. Y'all do know that, right? I mean, people act like everything Caitlin Clark achieved was like, I don't know, video game stats. But whatever the case may be, more information is coming out. And shout out to the gang over on Twitter. J Mac put up just a great statistic, kind of breaking this whole thing down, man. So this is the article right here that was released and had people up in arm. This was the greatest women's college basketball.
A major controversy has erupted in the basketball world following the announcement that Caitlin Clark earned a position on the Associated Press all-time college women's basketball team. The inclusion has triggered intense reactions from fans who strongly oppose her placement among the sport's legends. News emerged recently that Clark made the AP's historic roster, joining celebrated names including Candace Parker, Cheryl Miller, and numerous other iconic figures. Those who tracked Clark's journey at Iowa understand exactly what she brought to the court during her collegiate years. Her performance level was exceptional throughout her entire time on campus. True, Clark never won a championship ring. However, her personal accomplishments tower over any trophy she might have collected.
Had people up in arm. This was the greatest women's college basketball players ever who made the list. So this is originally the article that came out by AP Press. As y'all can see right there, Cheryl Miller is clearly on the list. It stated for many college basketball experts selecting the greatest players of the women poll era. You know, it sounds easy until they try it. So ultimately, they got Diana Taurasi on there, Cheryl Miller on there. How many people from UConn gonna be on there, bro?
She fundamentally changed women's basketball forever. Her scoring ability surpasses every other player in college basketball history, regardless of gender. That bears repeating. Number 9. She outscored everyone, male and female competitors alike. Some people dismiss her numbers as if they're too good to be real, treating them like something from a video game. Nevertheless, the statistics are verified and accurate. Social media analysts have broken down the data comprehensively. The AP article that sparked this uproar was titled about identifying the finest women's college basketball talents throughout history.
UConn gonna be on there, bro. That's what I want to know. Nearly impossible. Rebecca Lobo, a former UConn star, which a lot of people from UConn is going to be on there. Rebecca Lobo said it was extraordinary difficulty. So Rebecca Lobo is one who kind of put this thing together. She stated it was extraordinary difficult, especially to try to hone in on one player college career and eliminate their pro career from your brain. Lobo added.
The original Associated Press piece discussed how challenging the selection process became. Cheryl Miller appears prominently on the final roster. The article explained that for basketball experts, choosing the top players from the modern era sounds straightforward until the actual selection begins. The task proved incredibly demanding. Diana Taurasi earned her spot, as did Cheryl Miller. Several UConn athletes made the cut, raising discussions about how many players from that program would ultimately appear. Rebecca Lobo, who starred at UConn herself, contributed significantly to creating this list.
Pro career from your brain. Lobo added. There are going to be players who are Hall of Fame caliber players who aren't on the list. Joining Miller in the front court on the first team is Breanna Stewart and Candace Parker, who joins Diana Taurasi. So this is the list right here. It says Taurasi helped UConn win 3 national championships, including carrying the Huskies to the last 2 basically on her own during her junior season.
Lobo described the process as incredibly challenging, particularly when trying to focus exclusively on college achievements while ignoring professional careers. She pointed out that many Hall of Fame quality athletes would unavoidably miss the final selection due to limited spots. The starting lineup includes Miller in the front court with Breanna Stewart and Candace Parker alongside Diana Taurasi. Taurasi led UConn to 3 championship victories, essentially dominating her final 2 seasons almost single-handedly. Historical context deserves consideration here. The competitive environment during Taurasi's playing days differed dramatically from current standards. The talent level wasn't comparable to today's depth.
The last 2 basically on her own during her junior season. Now, guys, we got to remember, too, not to take anything away from the great Diana Taurasi. She was playing, man, it really wasn't that much talent. It wasn't like how it is now, bro. That's all I'm going to say. I ain't gonna diminish what Donna Taurasi did, but the playing field wasn't the same for CC, bro. Diana Taurasi ain't have to play against players like Paige, bro, who's gonna be great players in their own right. Then it goes on to say
she didn't encounter opposition equivalent to emerging stars who are building their own legacies now. Taurasi herself expressed appreciation for the honor, describing it as remarkable and meaningful when considering the sport's rich history. Clark responded to her selection by expressing gratitude for appearing on such a distinguished list with players she respected. She mentioned how interesting it would be imagining all these talents competing together on one squad. The concept of such a super team would certainly create fascinating scenarios, similar to what video game simulations allow fans to explore. Social media commentary revealed divided perspectives.
Then it goes on to say what happened. What an accomplishment and what an honor, Taurasi said, to think about the history. So boom. Her play court being named AP. Here we go. CC, one of the most honors in college sports. Caitlin Clark. It means a lot to be named to this all-time list alongside players I looked up to. Fun to think about what it would have been like if we all played.
Multiple voices questioned whether Clark truly deserves ranking ahead of Maya Moore. Moore landed on the second squad, while Clark secured the starting point guard role. Critics emphasized that Clark lacks championship hardware. Supporters fired back that these honors recognize individual excellence, not team success. Using championship requirements would disqualify countless exceptional NBA and WNBA talents from ever receiving such recognition. Some insisted Moore remains individually superior.
If we all played together, hey, that'd be some ish if all of them ladies played together on like a super team. That's why you gotta love 2K. Now, that was the article there that had came out. Going back to J-Mac, you know what I'm saying? This was the picture of all the ladies. I spoke briefly about this yesterday in a video. I didn't go all in like I'm doing now. But this was the starting core here.
Others firmly rejected that notion, arguing Clark deserves comparison to Michael Jordan himself. Understanding Clark as the Jordan of her generation shouldn't be difficult. Jordan himself didn't capture championships immediately during his career. He secured one college title, though he faced different levels of competition too. Various commenters placed Clark at the absolute top position. Others suggested Moore belongs in Taurasi's tier.
Let's just check out some of these comments, man. Some of the comments before we get into why people are mad. Caitlin Clark was cold in college, but ain't no way in hell she better than Maya Moore. What is you saying? Maya Moore was second team, bro. CC the point guard on this team, bro. Facts, bro. Facts. She doesn't have a ring to her name. Who gives a damn? These are individual accolades. By your thinking, many notable NBA or WNBA players would have never been named for the
alternative proposals included substituting Clark with Cheryl Swoops, though many defended Clark's inclusion based purely on collegiate performance. When evaluating college statistics and achievements, Clark's credentials speak powerfully. She claimed the all-time NCAA Division I scoring record across both genders. Her three-point total reached 548, establishing the Division I mark. She became the Big Ten's sole player to lead simultaneously in points and assists. She achieved over 1,000 points in 2 separate seasons, accomplishing what no other player had done, regardless of gender.
It's going to be an absolute disaster. But I do think there were some very fair points made in this. And I think a lot of them, again, a lot of it was some of the points that I made, is that I still stand by Stephanie White likes the idea of Caitlin Clark more than she likes the player of Caitlin Clark. And this is not, I've always said this isn't like a personal level. People think everything's on a personal level. It's like you have got an extremely risk-averse coach and you've got an extreme risk taker. And he brought out a point here.
Her feat of leading her conference in both scoring and assists for 4 straight seasons remains unmatched in NCAA history. Clark holds the record for most 30-point games in major college basketball with 56 such performances. She became the inaugural player to post a 40-point triple-double during tournament competition. These accomplishments echo the extensive recitation of honors when her jersey received retirement, an event that required substantial time to cover all her achievements properly. The image of her retired jersey hanging represents everything she accomplished. Personal opinions about other WNBA stars missing the list don't change the facts.
He brought out a point here, and I'm only just going to very, very briefly talk about this. He brought up a point, and this is something he didn't mention this, that Stephanie White talked about in the press conference. So there's a play somewhere that, like, this play right here. So basically, Dantas, she's like motioning for Dantas to cut through in this scenario here. She's motioning for Dantas.
Clark's inclusion reflects her Jordan caliber impact on the sport. The Jordan comparison carries weight. Everyone knows Jordan's significance, making additional explanation redundant. Jordan wore number 23, Clark wore 22, and both occupy that exclusive tier of excellence where only a handful of athletes belong. The statistical evidence tells an irrefutable story. The scale and sequence of her achievements place her in a realm few athletes ever access. Rebecca Lobo's evaluation simply reflects what the data shows. Honest assessment backed by undeniable records.
Through in this scenario here, she's motioning for Dantas to just get the fuck out of the way, or Dantas to move. So then, in the end, she ends up driving here, and Dantas spots up to here, and Sabrina's kind of playing the two. And I stand by this. Like, Dantas should have cut here because it gets Lexi wide open for three. But Dantas doesn't see that. She still should have passed the ball to Dantas. Like, two wrongs don't make it right. So she ends up throwing a turnover because Dantas just decides to stand there.
The comprehensive collection of honors presents a case that withstands scrutiny when examining pure collegiate output. Recent discussions examining the working relationship between coach Stephanie White and player Caitlin Clark have sparked considerable debate within basketball circles. These conversations originated from commentary, presented during various streaming sessions, and earlier analysis conducted roughly 6 weeks prior. The core question centers on whether White's coaching philosophy aligns with Clark's natural playing style. White has undoubtedly proven herself worthy of continuing for an additional season. Making absolute declarations that this coaching arrangement represents a guaranteed failure without potential for growth would be premature and unfair.
Two wrongs don't make it right. So she ends up throwing a turnover because Dantas just decides to stand there. And that's one of the things with Caitlin is like, it is an actual negative. We saw it at Iowa. When players are not playing at the level that she wants, when players are not at the IQ that she wants, she gets frustrated. And that was a bad turnover. But at the same time, like, this was a possession that Stephanie White, Caitlin Clark went, and she had 32, 8, and 9. And that Venom brought it up that at the end of the game, Stephanie White basically just said,
Nevertheless, several valid criticisms merit serious consideration, many echoing points previously highlighted in earlier discussions. The primary tension appears rooted in a fundamental disconnect. White seemingly values the theoretical benefits of having Clark on the team more than she embraces Clark's actual on-court methodology. This observation has nothing to do with any personal animosity between the individuals involved. Rather, it represents a classic clash between an extremely conservative, cautious coaching mindset and an exceptionally bold, aggressive player mentality. These contrasting philosophies naturally create underlying tension. One particularly illustrative moment emerged from post-game press conference remarks.
He just said, she just had a hot streak. And, we need to reintroduce her to Dantas because she needs to pass the ball to Dantas more. Dantas at that stage in the season was shooting 12% from three. She was shooting 12% from three. Caitlin Clark was on an all-time heater. Dantas was shooting 12% from three at that stage in the season. Like, Dantas, up until garbage time, as in they'd already made the playoffs with like two games to go, when Dantas suddenly got hot, she was shooting 16% from the three-point line. Like,
During a specific sequence, Clark gestured for Dantas to execute a cutting motion through the paint, or alternatively, to vacate the area entirely. Instead, Dantas remained stationary in position. Clark subsequently drove toward the basket while Dantas relocated to spot up, with Sabrina functioning as a secondary guard. The ideal basketball play would have involved Dantas making that initial cut, which would have created an uncontested three-point opportunity for Hull. Dantas failed to recognize this possibility, though Clark still bore responsibility for making the pass to Dantas despite the poor positioning. Compounding errors doesn't produce correct results.
She was shooting 16% from the three-point line. Like, of players in the rotations on teams, she was the worst player in the league up to that point. Genuinely, she was the worst player in the entire league. that was like getting big minutes. And I don't think people realize that. But I think a major point that Venom makes and he was making is a point that I've made a lot. And it's basically just the way that Stephanie White speaks about Caitlin Clark. And you can see her body language on the side, like.
The sequence concluded with a turnover resulting from Dantas' decision to remain planted. This incident exemplifies a genuine flaw in Clark's approach that surfaced repeatedly during her college career. When teammates underperform relative to her expectations or demonstrate insufficient basketball awareness, frustration becomes visible. That particular turnover represented poor execution. However, examining the larger surrounding circumstances proves essential. This sequence unfolded after Clark had already scored 28 points during the contest.
Language on the side, like, she'll celebrate when another player does something. When Caitlin Clark hits 3 threes in a row, it's arms crossed. Like, I don't want that. And the Sue Bird interview is the most telling thing. Like, you could tell Caitlin Clark was nervous talking about it. You can tell she was trying not to say something she shouldn't. And, like, it was the same as, do you remember the interview she had when it was, like, when she had just played her worst game ever as a pro against the Golden State Valkyries, when she played small forward. She played small forward.
White's subsequent media comments essentially characterized this output as merely experiencing a fortunate shooting stretch, while suggesting the team needed to refocus on getting Dantas more involved because additional passes should flow toward her. During that particular phase of the season, Dantas was converting a mere 12% of her three-point shot attempts. Clark was experiencing an extraordinary shooting performance. Dantas maintained that 12% three-point percentage. Before late-season situations with minimal competitive significance after the team had already clinched playoff qualification with 2 remaining contests, when Dantas finally showed improvement, she had been shooting only 16% from three-point distance. Among all rotation players receiving significant playing time throughout the league, Dantas legitimately ranked among the absolute worst performers during that stretch.
Against the Golden State Valkyries, when she played small forward. She played small forward and was fucking terrible because she is not very good. Like, to play Caitlin off the ball, you need to have, like, a whole bunch of super high IQ players that are going to move the ball side to side and get the ball back to her. The problem is that the Indiana Fever have a bunch of the offense stops here players. Like, let's just say hypothetically Odyssey Sims is there. You've got the offense stops here, Kelsey Mitchell. Aaliyah will pass her the ball. The offense stops here, Lexi Hull. The offense stops here, Natasha Howard. Like, how
many fans and observers fail to comprehend just how problematic those shooting percentages truly were. Another crucial element involves examining how White publicly discusses Clark and observing her visible courtside reactions. When teammates execute successful plays, enthusiastic celebration typically follows. When Clark drains 3 consecutive three-point shots, the observable response involves crossed arms and apparent dissatisfaction. The championship post-game interview proved especially enlightening. Clark displayed obvious nervousness while addressing particular subjects, clearly making conscious efforts to avoid making inappropriate statements.